Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're speaking today with Seth Bader. How are you today, Seth?
Joseph, how are you? I'm great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm speaking to you today. You are in Atlanta, Georgia, is that right?
Yes, sir. I'm here in Atlanta.
So I want our listeners to meet Seth. Seth is, he started a firm called Bader Scott Injury Lawyers in Atlanta. And it's not only a law firm, but it is probably one of the fastest growing law firms in the country. Would you agree with me on that, Seth?
I would, thank you. Yeah, in 2008, I founded what was then Bader Law Firm. In 2018, my partner, Louis Scott, joined the firm, and we converted the name to Bader Scott Injury Lawyers. And this will be the second consecutive year that we have been recognized as one of the fastest growing businesses, not just law firms, but one of the fastest growing businesses in the state of Georgia. And I believe we're one of the fastest growing law firms in the entire country.
Wow. So, that's really interesting to me is, from a law firm standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, one of the things I like our listeners to learn from these podcasts is how these very interesting people go from point A to point B. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of look under the hood here and see how you did it, Seth, and how you're making a difference in Atlanta. So I'm looking forward to figuring that stuff out. So first of all, let's go back to the beginning. As I understand it, I did a little bit of research for this interview. That you are a native of Florida.
Yes, I grew up in Miami, and so I'm from Florida. I moved to Atlanta in 2003. And Joseph, if I may, you mentioned going from point A to point B. I will just tell you, in my opinion, in my experience, and most of my friends who have achieved any level of success, it's not a straight line from point A to point B. I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I know. It's very crooked. Sometimes, it's your own unique story. I think, one of the things that I've learned from speaking with you is use the word alignment. And that's a really interesting concept. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to inspire some folks, because, a lot of people that start out, they go through high school, they go through college, even they go through law school, and they think that their path is done and that's their defining moment, and then they're done. What I've seen from a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of folks that are very successful is that they go through a lot of peaks and valleys until they figure out where their lane is, where their best lane is, and then they go there. Has that been your experience?
There's no question about that. As I mentioned, the line from where I was to where I am today, it's peaks and valleys. It's squiggly, but we're here now. But yeah, I mean, it's been, life and business have both presented different challenges. But I think one thing that's consistent amongst all entrepreneurs, lawyers, and other folks that have achieved any degree of success is that they are comfortable with adversity and overcoming challenges, and then they grow from those.
Yeah, we're doing this podcast April 9th, 2020, and America is at a standstill. I don't think America's maybe ever been in this situation. Maybe in the Spanish flu back in the early 1900s, but all businesses are stay at home, or most of them. There's some essential businesses, but I tell you, I know for sure in my 56 years on the planet, I've never seen anything like this. And this, I think, will be a defining moment for business owners, for law firm owners. And, how are you handling stuff right now, Seth?
Sure. Well, I think I agree with you that this is going to be a defining moment for all of us. In our law firm, we really believe that we're built for this. Again, just to go back to my own personal story, I've overcome my own set of challenges in adversity, and I actually started my law firm in 2008, really in the middle of our last recession. And so for me, I'm very comfortable with this. I built my law firm to work from home in 2008 because I didn't have the funds, the resources, or the infrastructure to really have a traditional office. And so in some ways, it was 12 years ago that I built a firm that was made for what we're going through today. And so we have a relatively young team. My guess is that the average age of our employee is probably about 30 to 33. And so most of them are very comfortable with all the technology. We were already I guess an electronic filing law firm or a paperless law firm. And so for us, the transition actually happened in the course of 48 hours. And so I mean, we have a really high spirit. We're blessed. We have not had to terminate anybody. We've not had to reduce anybody's pay, and we're continuing to rock along.
That's great. And how many folks do you have working there at the firm?
Sure. So we have about 140 to 150 right now.
Oh my goodness. That for our listeners that maybe don't understand the plaintiff's law firm mode. Most plaintiff's law firms at the most have maybe 10 people, 15 people, 20. There's a select group of firms that can basically keep that type of personnel, and you must represent thousands of clients.
That's correct. We probably have about 3,000 to 3,500 active cases at any given time.
Wow. And then, so tell us about, before we get into your background and how you went from point A to point B and then all over the B, C's, and D's. Yeah. What's the strength of your law firm in Atlanta?
You said what's the strength?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you're asking me what makes our law firm so strong,
yes,
I would say it's the leadership, and I'm not necessarily referring to myself, but just our entire leadership team and and frankly, the rest of our team. I think we have an incredible leadership team from my partner, Luis, who's the managing partner. I'm the founder. He's the active managing partner, to our director of operations, Luisa, to our HR director, our personal injury director, our workers' comp director. We have just an amazing team of dedicated leaders that aren't just dedicated to what they're doing in their day-to-day role, but they're really dedicated to growing the rest of our team. Our core values, Joe, are captured in the acronym GROWTH. And so growth is, really probably our most, to me, probably my most important core value. And so our leaders put a lot of time and effort into helping the rest of our team grow. And so I think our strength really is our people.
I went on your guys' website, the BaderLawFirm.com, and if our listeners just scroll to the part about us, but it's our staff, and you look at the pictures of our staff, are a majority of your employees women?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I feel confident in saying that more than 50% of our employees are women, and if I had to guess, it's probably about 75% to 25%.
You know, I was just interviewing a lawyer in New York State, and it was basically there was 22 women and there was 2 men, and he said that those guys did a lot more work than the guys did, and I said I believe it. But I look at this roster of people that and the images of the people at your firm. It's amazing, and I can tell you've basically sold your story and your growth aspect to these folks where they believe in you and they believe in your leadership team that they want to grow too.
Well, listen, I won't take the credit, but I will tell you that we have a team of very growth oriented employees. And I think that, you and I are in a group, a mastermind group with some folks called Chris Becks. And one of the questions that we're asked is, what are our non-negotiables? For me, one of my non-negotiables are that I demand that the people that work with me have a growth-oriented mindset, not a fixed mindset, that they want to grow, they want to learn, they're open to change. And so, again, I don't know what, if anyone is, or who is the inspiration for them, but I know that that's what we expect, and that's what we have.
That's great. So let's go back to you grew up in Miami. You made your way to Florida State Law School, and I see that you're on the law review.
I was.
Yeah, I was not. So I was one of those also ran lawyer guys, and I always was. That for people that don't know, if you're on the law review at any law school, you are one of the smartest dudes at the school, and so you get to write articles that people read and the upper crust read. I was more of the I don't know. I guess I was playing cards in the lobby while Seth was out there studying, hit the books and all that type of stuff. But when you got out of law school, usually the people that were on law review got the jobs at the big defense firms. Is that what happened to you?
Well, I wouldn't say that I got a job at a big defense firm, but I did get a job at a defense firm here in Atlanta.
So you came to Atlanta after law school then?
I did. So my mother is from Atlanta, and I had spent some time up here with her family, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the culture. I enjoyed the weather. I enjoyed the change of season, and so I moved here after law school in 2003.
Great. And then so you opened up your firm in 2008. Tell me about the jagged lines from 2003 to 2008.
Sure. So between 2003 and 2008, I worked for 3 different law firms, and each one of those jobs ended the same exact way. And I should say that each one of those jobs, it kind of started the same way. The work and my performance was very similar, and all 3 ended the same way. So all 3 of them started with, on my part, with tremendous hope, optimism, and excitement, because I was finally a lawyer. I could make a difference. I could make an impact. And, I had put in so many hours of school to get through college and then law school. So I was really excited about getting in there and doing really high quality work and making a difference, albeit at the time for an insurance defense attorney, as an insurance defense attorney, which I really wasn't excited about. But I went in, I worked hard. Nobody forced me to work as many hours as I did, but I would put in no less than 60 hours a week. I'd work all the weekends, because I really wanted to hone my craft and be the best lawyer I could be. And I would go in on weekends, and I rarely saw my bosses. They were rarely there, and they rarely stayed late at night like I did. And in all 3 jobs, I'm now proud to tell you, I got fired from all of them. At the time, I thought there was a problem with me and my performance. But now looking back, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. I'm actually quite proud of the fact that they let me go.
So for the listeners who don't understand what it means to work for an insurance company law firm, what is it exactly that you do?
Well, as an insurance defense attorney in the personal injury or workers' compensation space, you are basically tasked. It is your responsibility to help minimize the exposure. That is to say, to help save the insurance company money and to get injury claims resolved as quickly, efficiently, and as cheaply as possible. And so that was what I did.
And so when you were working there at those different law firms, and you're working, you get the way that, see, I did it too. I worked for 8 years, so you and I are similar. I worked for 8 years for law firms that represented insurance companies and large companies. And the way that what was required is that we had to bill a lot of hours, which means we had to keep our hours. And the more hours we billed, the better it was for the law firm, because they got to bill insurance companies. The insurance companies basically came back and paid us. So the more time we spent on a file, the partners at the law firm were happy, and that was great. And it's a complete, it's a little bit different than what we do now. But is that kind of what you were doing there?
Exactly. So the quality of the work was really not valued as much as the quantity of the work, and there was no correlation in my experience really between the quality of the work and the outcome of the case, because frankly the insurance company didn't really care that much. They of course they want to save as much money as possible, but they just want to be able to assess their risk, know what their risk is, and then resolve claims within the risk or the potential exposure. But if I worked really hard and did a great job and I did it efficiently, that was not as valued by my bosses as, frankly, milking the file and billing the file as much as you could to make as much money as you could. In other words, there was actually, I would argue, misalignment between what the lawyer was supposed to do in terms of saving them money and the work that the lawyer actually did, because frankly there was almost a built-in conflict of interest. The more that the lawyer so in any event, yes, that's what we did. We billed a lot of time.
Yeah. So you got fired from 3 different jobs, probably trying to ask too many questions about why quality wasn't important. But when did it pop in your head, Seth, that, hey, you know what? Not only do I not want to work for insurance companies or big companies, mm-hmm. I want to own my own law firm, and I want to represent people that have claims with insurance companies.
Sure. So the answer is I sort of two-part. One, I knew that I always wanted to help people from a very, very young age. So in some ways, ultimately finding a profession that allowed me to help people directly was my destiny. But I also knew, working for these companies, that these other law firms, that I could not coexist in businesses that didn't share my values and didn't share my work ethic, and as a result, it was 2000. So in some ways, it took about 3 or 4 years for me to really realize that I had to move on. But then it was 2008 that I finally took the leap of faith and moved on.
Great. So 2008, you're the country's in a recession. Mm-hmm. You've got your telephone, you've got your law degree. Tell us how you went from 0 employees, or maybe just you, to 150. I mean, that must have been quite a journey.
Yeah. So it has been a journey. It's remarkable when I look back. In some ways, it's taken so long. In some ways, it feels like it's happened overnight. But I'll try to give you the abridged version, and then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely, I'll interrupt you.
So 2008, I was just me. In 2018, I had built it up to 25, about 25 employees. And then in August of 2018, my partner, Louise Scott, joined the firm. And between August of 2018 and today, we've added about 125 employees. During from 2008 until about 2017, we were exclusively a workers' compensation law firm. That's my personal specialty is workers' compensation, which is to say that I represent people that get injured on the job. And then in 2017, really 2016, we went from being a small, what I would call like a mom and pop shop, where we basically did referral-based marketing and relationship marketing, to starting to spend money on advertising, both in traditional media and on the internet. And so the big boost and the big change in the business came in the end of 2016, moving forward, when we started to market.
So when you went into to make that change, what caused you to make that change? Was it basically you weren't growing fast enough, or you felt like you could do something a little bit more?
Yeah, well, there were, I think, a couple things. One was that I knew that there was tremendous growth potential, both within me personally and professionally, but also within the industry. And I was really just trying to learn as much as I could, so that when I took that, I guess, second leap of faith. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So that when I took what really was the second leap of faith in my business, the first being when I started, and the second being when I started to double down on marketing and advertising, I really wanted to make sure that I understood what I was doing, because I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs, both inside the legal space and outside, think that they can just take money and start spending it and generating business. The problem is marketing is much more than just advertising. You really have to know your numbers. You really have to know how it works. You have to know how to negotiate good deals. And so I really just wanted to make sure that I was informed about what I was going to do and make some smart decisions. So I think, but again, I think it was just a combination of my just extreme passion for growing, combined with the fact that I had finally learned enough to take that leap of faith and start to advertise.
You know, there's a lot of qualities in entrepreneurs and business owners that are common. I always like to ask people about some of their first jobs that they had. So when you were growing up in Florida, do you remember any of your first jobs that you had as a kid?
Sure. So the first job where I don't know if they were doing W-2s at the time, but the first time I was a W-2 employee, and that to distinguish from like doing odd jobs in and around the house and things to help my parents, and I'd get, an allowance, something like that. The first job I had, I think I was about 14 or 15. I think that was the legal age you could start working. And I worked at a local Subway. So I was very driven. My father was a neurologist, so there's a very good argument that I didn't have to actually work, but I really had a drive to kind of become independent and make my own way. And so I took a job, like I said, I think it was about 14 or 15 at Subway. And then I guess that was, the season of my life. So I was basically a sandwich artist. So I went from Subway, and my very next job was at a place called Blimpie.
Oh yeah.
And
so hold on a second. Let's go back to Subway. So
okay.
So most people have their first jobs. Some of my kids worked at the theater, and they did all this stuff there. Do you remember your boss at the Subway?
I remember him. I don't remember his name. But I don't. I'm trying to think if I have any kind of compelling or interesting story about him or the place. I think the one thing that stands out to me, and for those people that really love Subway, I apologize for this, particularly in light of the fact that we're all dealing with this coronavirus and we're all especially sensitive about germs. But the one thing that stood out to me was that we made tuna fish, and these tuna fish, you mix the mayonnaise with the tuna in these massive bowls, and you would just take your hands and use them. And even though there was a sign that said, "I'm sorry, listen, and it wasn't just the tuna; it was the seafood. There was I don't know if it was called the Seafood Delight or the Seafood Salad. So again, for those of you that love Subway, I apologize, but anyway, that's what I remember about Subway. Now, my next job at Blimpie, I don't remember my boss's name. He was an Israeli guy, nice guy, and the only thing is the only thing that's really interesting about that is there was a mascot. Again, now looking back, now that I'm a successful business owner, law firm owner, 150 employees, I can tell these stories that in the past I would have been ashamed to tell you. But when I worked at Blimpie, the Blimpie mascot was a bear. And so at one point and I got kind of jealous because there was another kid who was really not a very good employee. And what they did with him was they said, you work outside, you get your Walkman. I can't believe I'm like at a point in my life where I can say I'm that old, but we had Walkmans with tape recorders. And so he would get to go outside, dress up in the Blimpie bear costume and dance around on the street. So I convinced the boss, I said, I got to have an opportunity to do this as well. Otherwise there's some kind of discrimination. And I did that. And here's the funniest part. The funniest part is that I got so enthused about it, I would kind of like hop in the street, like wave people down, because I was trying to bring people into the restaurant. And no joke, a car swerved around me, got into an accident, nothing big. and literally about 10, 20 minutes later, they were looking for witnesses, and they came in looking for the Blimpie bear. It's a true story. It's a true story.
Hold on a second. Now, tell everybody what a Blimpie is.
Well, Blimpie was the name of the restaurant or the sandwich shop.
Is it like a Subway?
And I guess it's a direct competitor of Subway. There's not so many anymore, but yes, it's similar to Subway.
So tell me, I want to get a visual in my mind here, Seth. So were you elbow deep in tuna and mayonnaise at the Blimpie?
No, I was not elbow deep in tuna at Blimpie. I think Blimpie, I don't actually remember. I think the only difference was that we used gloves. And again, I just want to be clear. I am not talking. There's got to be a disclaimer on this podcast. I'm not saying that all Subways do it. I'm just telling you how that one franchise owner did it in Pinecrest, Florida.
So anyway, so you liked being in the bear suit. That must have been hot.
Look, I'm not saying I liked it. I'm just saying, I was trying to find my way, and I wanted an opportunity. Let me tell you something. The correlation between that and today is I love marketing. I absolutely love marketing. So I guess that was it's always been a thing for me. So, I wanted to market for him then, and I love marketing now. In fact, just to tie it all together, I do a lot of marketing. We do a lot of work within the Hispanic community. And we will host and we will sponsor big rodeo type concerts, and I'll dress up in the cowboy outfit and get up on stage and whatever. I love marketing and I love connecting with people, and so whenever the opportunity is there, I do it.
Okay, so how long did you last at Blimpie?
I probably worked there about a year and a half. I did that during high school. I think I did that in evenings and some weekends.
So I got to get a picture of this. You go home.
Sure.
You sit down at dinner with your dad, the neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
And Dad says, "Hey, Seth, so what, after he got you out of the, your elbows into the seafood salad and the tuna, he basically said, 'Hey, Seth, that's probably, you're probably not going to eat those free sandwiches at Subway.' Then he asks you at the dinner table, says, 'Hey, Seth, what'd you do today?' So, well, I got into a bear costume and I almost killed somebody in the street." How did that conversation go?
I don't know that I remember that specific conversation. My father grew up with very little and was a self-made man, and so I think from his point of view, he appreciated my
So
hustle.
tell me a little bit about your father. You said he's self-made. Tell me about his story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my father grew up in Brooklyn, New York, the son of immigrants, Jewish immigrants. They had very little. His father was a
Where did they
butcher,
come from?
And from Austria,
wow.
Russia. Yeah. And so he grew up very, very poor. The family, the parents didn't really appreciate the importance of education and didn't really push for that. And so, but my father, from a very young age, I knew that he wanted to be a doctor, and so he went off to college, then he went off to the military, and then he went off to medical school, all either on scholarships or through government loans, and then went on and became actually a neurologist, not a neurosurgeon. And so yeah, I mean, there's more detail there, but I mean that's
boy, that's a great story. I'm a history major, Seth, so I like to read a lot of books. I like to read world history, American history, but I can't tell you how much I love this country. The stories about what's your dad's name?
Daniel.
The story about, Daniel Bader, MD, coming from, low income in New York and becoming a neurologist and, making a great life for himself. I mean, that's what this country's about. And, that's why I really like talking to people like you and other entrepreneurs and folks that, lay it on the line, because I tell you, it's, other generations have gone through a lot for us to get here. And, when I look at, my parents, listeners know that I'm one of 10 kids, and my dad was a social worker. My mom stayed at home, and we had absolutely zero. I mean, zero money. And I look at the hustle that people that really work. I mean, I never danced in a bear outfit. I might go find a Blimpie and see if I can get that job just so I can stay up with the Baders, because I tell you that I would love to go tell that story. I mean, that is a great story. And I tell you, a lot of folks that are working nowadays, it seems like, not the ones that work for us. I mean, I'll tell you that much, because they're hustlers, but there seems to be like a generation of people that have, I don't know if you've seen it, Seth, but an entitlement type of attitude where they believe that, these jobs that we talk about, they would never do because, they're too good for that job. Did you ever run into that?
Well, I have. I mean, I at times I think I've thought it's like an entitlement attitude, and then part of me thinks it's really just the world that they grew up in. So, we have a lot of employees now that, again, I told you that most of our employees, the average age is probably between 30 and 33. And I think, many of them, number one, they've grown up with social media. So they're accustomed to things happening quickly. I mean, literally things that would have taken, days, weeks, or months for us to even be aware of literally happen in seconds. So I think that's part of the issue. And then part of it is that they've grown up, again, this millennial generation, unless they experienced 2008, probably after 2010, the last 10 years, anybody that's joining the workforce during that time has been living in what I think is a dream world. And so there's been, it's been an employees market, which is wonderful for them. But I think that they didn't realize how hard it is to really progress and to grow and to get promoted. And I think, unfortunately, I think right now they're going to realize just how hard it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I don't know that it's their fault or that there's an entitlement attitude, but there has certainly, I think, been an expectation that that the career path and the promotion path will be accelerated. And so,
so I think that, what I'm looking for this is something that I want to transition to here is, how you have such a great cohesive team and how you build that. That isn't something that just happens. It's something that requires folks to have accountability and an attitude of gratitude and and good habits. So I think that some of that flows from the top. So what are some of the habits, just personal habits that you have that you've developed in running a law firm, business like you have, to help you become an effective leader for the folks that work with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I think that it's not a habit, but it's a mindset. I told you it's having a growth mindset. Next, I think having a vision is absolutely critical to any type of success, and particularly when you're trying to get a team of people, big or small, to move forward and succeed. And I think the bigger the team, the more clear that the vision needs to be for the team. In terms of habits, and by the way, one of our core values, you mentioned gratitude. I told you it's our core values are captured in the acronym GROWTH, which stands for gratitude, respect, open-heartedness, winning, trust, and humility. And I think those values, while they're not habits, I think embodying and adhering to those values, I think has been really critical for my success. The other sort of habit that it's not listed by name in the core values, but I think it is captured certainly in the core value of winning, and that is a sense of urgency. I really believe one of my greatest attributes and one of my greatest habits is that I just have this incredible sense of urgency to get things done and not to wait till tomorrow.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. One of the things that we do like to push kick the can down the road. I know that government wise that a lot of times those folks do that, but in private enterprise, getting things done is what our clients expect, and it's what our employees expect. I mean, we're required to do that. So I think that urgency thing is key. And the thing I liked about that growth acronym that you use is really a cool thing about. I really do like the humility aspect of that and the gratitude aspect of that, because being able to be a really good law firm means that you have respect, first of all, for the people you work with. Because if you don't have the respect for people you work with, go find another job. That's basically it. You should respect people you work with, because that allows you to serve the clients better and understand the clients better. And I think if you have that habit of being grateful, humble, then you listen a lot more and you talk less and you do more. That's been my experience.
I absolutely agree. You know, if you ask me which of those core values, man, it'd be tough to tell you which is the most important. But if I had to choose one, it probably would be humility. And I think the reason is that let me just go back to where we started. I was talking about adversity and this, you know, getting from point A to point B. I think if you're humble and you recognize that you're going to face adversity, you're going to face challenges that you're not that are new to you and that you've never encountered. Uh, but if you're humble about it, it's much easier to encounter them and deal with them, because you, instead of facing them and crumbling because of the discomfort, you face them with a much more positive attitude, and you say, you know what, I don't know this, but I'm going to learn it, I'm going to figure it out. And then when you fail, or when you know when what you attempt to do doesn't work the way you expected, for a second time you say, you know what, it's okay, like, I'm humble, I accept I'm not perfect, and then you learn from it. And I think when I talk about going from point A to point B and going in peaks and valleys and around in circles at times, I think really each one of those peaks and valleys and each one of those turns in the road really represent a challenge where you failed, you got knocked down, but you got right back up. And I think if you're humble and you're open to learning, and you're grateful for that opportunity to learn, then you can just continue to grow and keep reaching new plateaus.
One of the things that when I did my research for this interview, Seth, was I looked at the unbelievable amount of community outreach that you guys do in Atlanta, and I was looking at the different folks that you guys are working with, and I'm wondering, how does a law firm have time to do all this stuff, with the community?
Well, you make the time. I mean, I think that I think I'm very grateful for what I've been able to earn and receive, albeit it's largely because of the hard work that I've done. But it's not without the help of others. It's not without the trust that the people in the community have placed within me and my firm. And so without the community, we don't have anything. And so I think you make the time to give back, because I really believe that you have to be a giver, not a taker. A mentor of mine by the name of John Sweet, when I first started my practice, I don't even know if I had filed the paperwork with the Secretary of State, but he said, Seth, I want you to remember this lesson. He said, there's two types of people in this world. There's givers and there's takers, and you better be a giver. And
I'm looking at some of these charities: Kids Chance of Georgia, Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Atlanta, Resurgence Charitable Foundation, Prosthetic International, Cops for Kids, Weinberg Early Learning Center, and the list goes on. You know what? I tell you, that's why I really like doing these things, because these type of interviews inspire us and hopefully our listeners to do more and to reach out, because it's about the relationships, isn't it, Seth, that you develop with people, and you've been given a chance by your parents to enter the world as basically in our economy, it's up to you. It's up to you. What are you going to do with your chance? And you're giving these kids a chance to see what it can be like outside of their neighborhood, or what it can be like to develop a relationship, to be a mentor. And, I applaud your firm for doing that. And, I think that's great. And I want to finish this up, Seth, by asking you said that you made kind of an important change about 2 or 3 years ago, when you decided to do more marketing and jumped off the cliff to make your a leap of faith to basically say, listen, I've got an unbelievable team. I want the world to know it. I have these people are people that can serve, and you've done it. How have you done outreach, for example, to the Hispanic community in Atlanta?
Well, we've partnered with a lot of different organizations and nonprofits that are rooted in the Hispanic community. We've partnered with a lot of our media partners to get in the community and to give back, whether it's through charity or simply community events, just to connect with them and build relationships with them, so that so that they know that they have a business of lawyers that are there to
And
serve
then
them.
you have lawyers that speak Spanish?
Well, I speak Spanish because I grew up in Miami. And so while I'm not absolutely fluent, I am conversant. And the vast majority of our employees, though not most of our lawyers, but certainly our employees, most of them are Hispanic and bilingual. And while I am not bilingual, I am while I'm not Hispanic, because of my childhood in South Florida, surrounded, really immersed within the Hispanic culture, I'm extremely proud of the fact that our firm has not only serves the Hispanic community, but has created opportunities for a lot of young people, young professionals, that some of whom never went to college, many of whom are just right out of college. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we have so many young people, again, in the Hispanic community, that are able to use our firm as, in some cases, the beginning of a long career with us, and others just as a launch pad, to grow.
That's great. I was looking at in researching for this interview, I looked at your roster, and you're telling me the majority of them can speak Spanish, which is absolutely terrific, and you're giving jobs to these people and opportunities. That's wonderful. So if there's a young person in Atlanta that is really smart, can speak Spanish, and is a hustler, is he or she got a shot at getting a job at the Bader Law Firm?
Absolutely. I'd go further and say, if there's a young person, whether they speak Spanish or not, hell, young or old, it doesn't matter. If somebody comes in and they have a great attitude, and they work hard, and they believe in our values, and they adhere to those values, they've got a great shot. But certainly, because we serve the Hispanic community, those that speak some Spanish, they certainly have
That's great.
a leg
listen,
up.
I really appreciated our time together, Seth, and the Bader Scott Injury Lawyers in Atlanta. They're ready to serve you. They say habla español, and they're if you check out the BaderLawFirm.com, you'll see all the great people that work there and the practice areas, the resources. You'll learn a lot. And follow Seth Bader on social media. He's got some great stuff there.
And
Go ahead.
And Joseph, may I say one more thing to end it? Don't be surprised if in the next 3 months our mascot is a little Bader.
You know
bear.
what? I tell you, I think that is gold. I've had a lot of really interesting jobs. One of my jobs, I had many jobs growing up, but one of the jobs, my buddy Jeff Storr and I, in Yakima, Washington, we lived in a kind of a rural area, and it was a lot of fun to grow up there, like 50,000 people. But one of my jobs, Seth, was to do telemarketing and to sell circus tickets. And so the people that hang up on you or say no is 99.9% say, no, I'm not buying a circus ticket, or they just don't even say anything. But that one person that said yes, the celebration was very great when they were going to the circus, and then I was the one that was selling the ticket. I can't remember what we got for it, but it was hardly anything. But I had a lot of jobs that are unspeakable. But I tell you, I never had a job where I got to dance in traffic as a bear.
Yeah. Somebody's got to do it. And
that's awesome.
I humbly.
Well, thank you so much, Seth, and I hope you have a terrific
thank you so much.
year in 2020. Let's make it a great year, okay? All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day.